After staying quiet for over 20 years, Ice Cube is finally speaking out against Diddy. He recently testified in court about things he saw while working with Diddy, including Diddy allegedly grooming underage people. Kanye West also appeared at the trial, supporting Diddy. A private call between Kanye and Diddy has now gone viral, and one of the jurors was removed from the case because Diddy's lawyers were supposedly trying to influence him.
But I've been shut out. You know, some platforms will not have me on.
Why?
They don't like that I'm, an independent thinker. I'm not part of the herd. I'm not part of the go along to get along gang, so to speak. So, I'm an outsider. And so, I'm not part of the club.
Almost 40 years rocking the mic. You still killing it, goddamn. And I'm going to tell you right now, me and Dub C ain't never been to a Diddy party, motherfucker. Nah.
Thank God.
You ain't got to worry about us on them motherfucking tapes. Now check this shit out.
Gotta sing you that part.
Week 4 of Diddy's trial has started. Ice Cube shared what he witnessed at Diddy's mansion back in 1994. They were working together on Ice Cube's War and Peace album when Diddy invited him over. At the mansion, Ice Cube saw drugs, guns, and escorts, things the FBI is now using as evidence. The house had strange things like 1,000 baby oil bottles, lube, drugs, and whips. Diddy would even beat women in front of his guests. He thought Ice Cube would stay quiet like others, but Cube chose to walk away and not be a part of it.
Diddy, you're hearing Diddy everywhere, okay?
Yeah.
So, did you ever have any kind of run-in with Diddy? Did you ever do anything with Diddy? Any projects you worked on with him?
He produced a few records, or had his producers do a few records on my War and Peace album, the Peace Disc. Yeah.
How was he to work with?
It was cool. He gave us great music. We flew out to New York, and I was mainly in the studio with the producer. He had a stable of producers, so I was in the studio with his stable of producers, and I think we did some great music. And I really kind of lost contact with him and really stopped, dealing with Puffy around 94. Yeah.
Any specific reason?
Yeah, I mean, they was doing their thing, I was doing mine. And, I'm not the partying type. You know what I mean? I ain't never been to a Diddy party. I ain't never really wanted to go. But I don't go to a lot of people parties. That just ain't what I'm in it for.
Ice Cube gave a full testimony in court, including names, places, and dates. He told the jury exactly what he saw in Diddy's mansion and how women were being abused. Diddy hoped Ice Cube would stay silent, like many others in the industry. Diddy's lawyers tried to stop Cube's testimony, calling it unfair and hearsay, but the judge allowed it, saying Cube had seen it all himself. The courtroom went quiet as Cube talked about hidden rooms, surveillance cameras, and the so-called freak-offs that Diddy and his team organized. Cube also said that powerful people in the music industry tried to threaten him into silence and even warned him that his career would be over. He says he's been blacklisted for speaking the truth.
You know what it is? Homeboy Ice Cube. And some of you may not have realized that I'm not part of the club. And a lot of you listening to me right here, right now, you're not part of the club either. And what I realized with the club is what makes them so mad is when you don't want to be a part of their fucking club. That pisses them off. What club am I talking about? I'm talking about the club of gatekeepers that we all got to deal with. You know who they are, and they definitely know who they are.
A lot of people would be like, what? Who? Come on, man. Stop playing. So ever since I put out the contract with Black America, they've been fucking with me. Here and there, this and that. But it's cool, I expect that. Platform again.
What platforms have banned you?
I've been I tried to go on The View. They didn't have me on The View.
Why?
Well, a few of the guests just really didn't like where I was coming from. So, or a few of the hosts, I mean. So that's what I was told by the producers. I don't know if the producers was just copping out and using some of the hosts to not have me come on and explain myself, but
you'd be a good booking for them.
I've been on there before.
Yeah.
It's just when I've became an independent thinker, when I've, I'm not, I don't follow their brand of politics, I guess.
But if you can't think for yourself, then you're not really free, are you?
No, you're not. You're not. But I've been excluded. I've been excluded on Oprah.
On Oprah?
On Oprah, yeah. I've been excluded. Yeah, man.
I would think you'd be the person Oprah would want to promote. I mean, you grew up in South Central. You were successful at a young age. You have dignity. You say what you think. Like, I thought that was the...
What's happening to Diddy now has been building up for years. He's not the main mastermind. He was just being used by more powerful people. Once those people in charge felt he wasn't useful anymore, they let him fall. The entertainment world, especially Hollywood, is full of abuse and manipulation. According to Ice Cube, music executive Clive Davis played a big role in turning Diddy into what he became.
You've been the one, you've been to them all.
Are you surprised at what things are coming out with Diddy at all, or you're like, you have no idea? It's none of my business. You'll live longer. Kind of like the mindset.
Surprised. How could you be surprised with anything that happens in hip hop? It's hip hop is the Wild West. So you're gonna have the good, you're gonna have the bad, you're gonna have the ugly.
You think he's being targeted, or some of the stuff he's got, there's credibility on what they're coming after him with the tapes and the feds and raiding his Miami home, his LA home?
I believe he's being targeted.
You believe he's being targeted?
Yeah. I believe, somebody, has the power to pull the trigger to make, this domino effect happen.
Okay. All right. So you think he's being targeted. So you don't think, Suge said, you can say what you want about Diddy, but Diddy didn't learn to like young boys. He learned it from a man named Clive Davis. He threw Clive Davis in there. It doesn't sound like you're part of that camp. You're part of the camp that you think he's being targeted.
I don't know enough to even be able to be specific on any of this stuff. It's just all speculation. I just know he was cool up until a point, and then this stuff started happening. So I believe somebody, like I said, yo, he's our new guy. We on this year or whatever.
Ice Cube's court testimony shows how Hollywood hides a lot of dark secrets. Sexual abuse is common, and famous people like Harvey Weinstein, Jeffrey Epstein, Roman Polanski, and now Diddy have all been accused of doing terrible things. These powerful people used young men for sexual acts. They are believed to be part of a group known as the Gay Mafia, which allegedly controls Hollywood and the music industry. Big music and film executives were also reportedly involved in sex trafficking with Diddy.
You got to take drugs. You're going through so much shit to try and deal with life. You are literally, it's an unhealthy space. And so eventually you're going to go too far. Who knows what happened to Philip? Who knows what he had to do in order to get to where he was at? There's a lot of things that people do that end up sitting and they can't get over it. And they got to keep getting high, hoping to get it out of their head. But when you lose your man card, That's the only thing I can think of. You lose your damn man card,
What is that? What do you mean by that?
you give up your ability, your right to being a man. A man don't take it, a man gives it. So when you give up that man card, you don't get that back.
Are you saying what I think you're saying?
Now, I'm saying what I'm saying. You don't get that back. You come into this world as a man one time. You give up that right for anything, for fear of being hurt, fear of somebody doing something, for wanting to gain something. When you give up that man card right, you lose some spiritual energy that has always been pushing through. Like if a woman gives up her womanly right of being a mother and taking care of her family and do all those things, when you give up those things, but when you give up your manhood, I've never seen somebody recover from it. That was all the people that went to the puffy parties. That was all the people that did all those things thinking that there was never going to be a consequence for what they were doing. Get punked out and pimped out by some greater desire. You shouldn't have a greater desire than being a man. So I believe that's a big problem with a lot of the actors out there because they get fluid. And next thing you know, once it go fluid, it's gone. You don't have any foundation to pull yourself back from. So maintain your man card.
Even now, Diddy is said to be trying to influence the case. One juror, number 6, was recently removed from the trial after being caught lying. Diddy's lawyers tried hard to keep this juror on the case, saying he was very important. Now people are questioning how this juror even got on the panel. Reports say Juror 6 had a hidden family connection to Bad Boy Records, something he never told the court.
Diddy Juror 6 gave multiple inconsistent statements. The judge was going over his issues with juror number 6, and although he did not make a final determination, his thoughts on juror number 6 being removed were pretty clear. He stated that in the initial process, juror number 6 said that he lived in the Bronx with his fiancée and his daughter. Then he turned around a while later and said that he moved to New Jersey with his girlfriend and also said that his daughter lived in New Jersey. But then it changed again and said that his daughter lived in the Bronx with his aunt. And he referenced that this was only a couple of the inconsistent statements, that there were more. The judge then stated that he wants this juror off the jury because there is no reason why this man would have to lie, and the only reason he would lie is to be a part of the Diddy trial, which made him worry that this juror might have a malicious intent or an agenda. But then after the judge said that we need to strike this juror off of the jury, Diddy's team started bringing up more arguments about this. Diddy's lawyer said that this juror is important because they need diversity, and he is only one of 4 black men that sit on the jury. He also said that he doesn't believe that these inconsistencies were that big of a deal where this juror would have to be removed. Diddy's team was arguing that this is something that should have been brought up weeks ago, and nobody brought this up, and the government is saying, listen, I didn't even know about this back then. And then Diddy's lawyer said something really, really weird. They said, just bring this juror in, just question him. I'm sure it's nothing. I'm sure he'll be able to explain. But this is what the government wanted the judge to do earlier, and Diddy's lawyer said, no. That would be harassing the juror. Then the judge told everybody to get out of the courtroom, that they needed to have a sealed talk.
Diddy had strong connections to political leaders, including being close friends with Mayor Adams. This is believed to be one of the reasons he avoided arrest for so long. Even now, big celebrities like Kanye West are publicly supporting him, with Kanye showing up at the trial in person.
Ye, formerly known as Kanye West, has made a surprise appearance at Sean Diddy Combs' criminal trial on Friday. He expressed support for his fellow rapper as he defends against sex trafficking charges.
Big breaking news tonight. For the first time in the history of New York City, a sitting mayor has been indicted for crimes. ABC News reporting that Mayor Eric Adams has been indicted by a federal grand jury. We do not know yet the exact charges. Federal authorities have been investigating Adams and members of his staff, issuing subpoenas for documents and cell phones. Several members of administration have resigned, some of them also friends of Mayor Adams. Again, Eric Adams, the 110th mayor of New York, has been indicted by a federal grand jury. We'll have the latest online and tonight on Eyewitness News at 11.
Diddy always been the type of individual They wanted to have ups on the next person no matter what they was doing. He did the stuff to Ja Rule so he could go after Jay-Z. They not going to come out and speak on nothing that has anything to do with them. And they praying that they not on the tape doing crazy stuff, being oiled up in the whole 9 yards. Until the Fed say, hey, yo, listen here. Hey, buddy, we got you on this tape. And girl looked like she was pretty young.
Diddy's actions have ruined many lives. Young artists were groomed and controlled by him. Some say this is the reason stars like Justin Bieber and Aaron Carter turned to drugs, to try and forget the trauma they experienced.
So you see some guys struggling with that. You see Bieber struggling with that. You see some of these guys struggling with that.
They can't get it out of their head. They can't get it out of their head. The things that they did, no matter how they did it, whether they were drunk or high or whatever, you gave up your man card. You need therapy. And that's the thing that hurts them the most. And so they end up on drugs, end up every way to try and get rid of any principles there are. And that's what the business does. And the women that trade their bodies to go and get the role, they get to the point where they have their Oscar, they have their money, but they don't have their dream. They don't have the soul that they started with. So it's like achieving don't mean anything. If I get all the Nobel Prizes from doing all of this, but in the process I have to trade out all of my integrity to do it so that they can stay in place, what benefit is that if I lose my integrity? You got to go in as a principal. And what we were brought in here as men. We produce 1,500 sperm per heartbeat for a reason, because the aggression is necessary. You don't trade that in, no matter what.
Prosecutors brought up the drugs Diddy used. They showed photos from his hotel room, along with $9,000 in cash that he planned to give to escorts. Even after the police raided his Miami mansion and found over 1,000 bottles of baby oil, he kept holding wild parties. Drugs like MDMA, cocaine, and even weapons were found. There's strong evidence linking Diddy to sex trafficking and missing victims.
Cassie told the jury that Diddy forced her into drug-fueled sex acts with male escorts, while he watched, sometimes sitting in the corner and masturbating. Through tears, she said she took drugs to numb herself, ecstasy, cocaine, and ketamine, all of it allegedly supplied by Diddy. She said the freak-offs included as many as 4 male escorts at once and typically lasted 36 to 72 hours. The longest, she said, the longest freak-off that she says she was forced to perform in lasted 4 days. She said they took place around the world, from New York to Miami to Spain to even Turks and Caicos. And at every stop, Cassie said the hotel rooms were stocked by Diddy's staff with baby oil, condoms, and drugs. And she says that these hotel rooms, this is disgusting, the hotel rooms were left covered in baby oil and covered in blood and covered in urine. Cassie told the jury that the freak-offs made her feel disgusting and humiliated and worthless. But she said she couldn't say no, because she says Diddy threatened to release videos of the freak-offs with her in them.
Just before they broke for lunch, Cassie Ventura described how freak-offs actually became a job, lasting 36 to 48 hours, the longest one lasting up to 4 days. No wonder the participants needed IV fluids after a freak-off. I'm just curious, to Lauren Cullen joining us at the courthouse, how was the jury responding?
What I will say is Cassie made a point to say that when she wasn't making music, she was actually having to, quote, recover from these freak-offs. And again, she did say these freak-offs lasted between 1 and 4 days, and it would take her an equal amount of time to get her body recovered, to rehydrate, to rest, to detox from these drugs. It was really, really sad to listen to.
One key witness is a woman known only as Jane, a former girlfriend of Diddy. Her identity is kept secret for her safety. In court, she gave an emotional and disturbing story about what really went on inside Diddy's world. She talked about years of mental abuse, violent behavior, and sexual control. One moment in her story left the whole courtroom silent.
She says that Diddy forced her to take drugs and that she would be awake for days, that she was taking ecstasy and Molly. And she said on these trips, she was sometimes so high on drugs that she lost her sense of self. Jane has finally taken the stand. Now, we're not allowed to reveal her identity because she's testifying under a pseudonym. She's talking about how she and Diddy first met, how they met in Miami and how he was so sweet and loving and that he was actually dating a friend of hers at the time, but that the two of them started going on trips to Turks and Caicos and the Bahamas. During her testimony, she's been crying and it seems like it's been really hard for her to be up there on the stand. She is now talking about how Diddy would make her watch pornography while they were having sex with each other and that he would talk to her about his fantasies. He would make her wear lingerie and what she calls stripper heels, and that at one point he told her that he wanted to see her have sex with other men. That's when he took her to a hotel room and she starts describing how his assistants were in there setting things up with baby oil and the lighting and providing drinks. And she said that when she was there, he then hired an escort from a company called Cowboys for Angels. She said that this escort's name was Dawn and that she had sex with this man in front of Diddy while he masturbated. Jane testified that over the next few years, 90% of her relationship with Diddy centered around these sexual encounters with male escorts. She testified that she told Diddy multiple times, verbally and in writing, that she did not want to participate in these sexual encounters.
Third alleged victim, who goes by the pseudonym Jane, was back on the witness stand for her first full day of testimony. The prosecutor played an audio recording for the jury of a hotel night with a male prostitute Jane identified as Dawn. On the recording, Jane and Dawn are looking for a condom, but Combs didn't allow it and can be heard saying, quote, "You're taking that expletive." Now, Jane testified, quote, "I just didn't want to disappoint my lover. He would be unhappy and wouldn't be satisfied with me." Jane went on to tearfully tell the jury about her birthday in 2023 when she said she was made to have sex with 3 different men in addition to Combs. The prosecutor asked why. Jane responded, "I don't know. It had become so routine," and added that she turned robotic. Jane told the jury that after a while, Combs didn't have to directly ask her for these hotel nights. She testified, "I knew it was to be expected." Combs has pleaded not guilty to all charges. If convicted, he faces the possibility.
Jane also spoke about a trip to Las Vegas with Diddy. She said they met another famous rapper and his girlfriend. What started as a fancy weekend turned into something dark. While she didn't name the rapper in court, some sources say it was Kanye West. Now that Kanye keeps showing up at the trial while Jane is testifying, people are starting to ask serious questions.
Real from the front lines, you know what I'm saying? It's wicked, wicked, wicked. So you be careful. Yeah. You can't do nothing in days. You know what I'm saying? I need you out there, you feel me? Yeah. I hear you. Yes, sir. Yeah. Yes, sir. And have some fucking fun. Yeah. Not having no fun. And they get behind the mic, have some fun, chop up them samples, get that more sleep in, vibe. Yeah. Have some fun, get that smiling. Yeah. These other motherfuckers, they waste your time, B. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I understand.
Another woman, Cassie, gave shocking testimony about Diddy's private parties, called freak-offs. She described how young people were groomed and sexually abused at these events, which were disguised as exclusive industry gatherings. She said Diddy controlled everything, and if things didn't go his way, he would become violent and scary.
People listening on here, but as she was describing these events where she said that there were multiple male escorts that were happening at one time, these freak-offs would happen for 2, 3, the longest 4 days at a time, and control is the word we need to talk about. That is what prosecutors really laid out, and you heard Cassie describe how every action during these freak-offs, which were between her and male escorts, not necessarily between her and her boyfriend, Sean Diddy Combs, he sat off to the side really directing things according to her and masturbating along with what he wanted to see. But he was in control, she said, really did not seem rehearsed in the slightest. It did seem like this is her story and she didn't really want to be in a position where she had to tell it in this way, but was doing what needed to be done.
And just quickly, Caitlin, what was Diddy doing when he's sitting there. I'm just envisioning you've got his family sitting behind him with all these grotesque details, this woman on the stand. What was his reaction?
You know, first and foremost, he came into the courtroom and acknowledged his children. That is something he has done every single day. But during the actual testimony, when things got really dark, one of the mothers of one of his children had to get up and leave the courtroom. She couldn't sit through it. And you, Brian, have been in so many of these court cases the way I have. You know that the defendant is not supposed to react. But Diddy reacted. There were a few times where he was shaking his head no, kind of nodding along. There was a deep sigh at one point. But in two instances, one when they were talking about baby oil and the fact that it needed to be reapplied at sometimes 5-minute intervals because that's what he wanted to see. And then another instance when Cassie revealed the pseudonyms that he uses at hotels, that he actually pushed his chair all the way back from the defense table.
A male sex worker known as the Punisher also spoke in court. He said he had 8 to 12 sexual encounters with Cassie while Diddy watched and gave instructions. He said Cassie didn't seem to want to be part of it, but Diddy didn't care. The goal wasn't pleasure, it was about control and humiliation. Every act was meant to satisfy Diddy's need to dominate.
On the stand, she said that guys would climax on her and she would take the cum and rub it on Diddy's nipples. Was this happening in your sessions?
Well, so it is an assumption, right? So, you know, obviously with the veil, there was a very deliberate attempt to hide his identity.
Yeah.
So they never had any interactions or even any outward conversation in my presence. So there was a routine where sometimes we'll be right in the middle of sex and he'll just stand up and walk out of the room. And she would take that cue and she would follow him out. So I did recognize, and, you know, I mentioned it in my book, that it became a habit that we're having sex on couches with sheets. We started in towels. I would climax, but she would specifically leave the room without wiping herself, without doing anything to take care of the whatever I left on her. So I assumed that's when he popped up, because once I climbed up, he popped up, he left the room, she popped up, she followed him. So I'm assuming that's when the lathering, whatever went on, happened at that point.
Okay. So at what point did he stop wearing a veil?
It was shortly after. The way that I ended up finding out who he was and they were, because obviously in conjunction with each other, about the 5th time, we were in a hotel called the Essex House. And when I would arrive for the sessions, I would be waiting around a couple of hours. So in this specific time, they put me into an extra room in the hotel suite. And to kill time, I decided to watch TV. And this specific hotel had a welcome message, which was, so when I cut on the TV, it specifically said, Essex House would like to welcome Mr. Sean Combs.
Oh.
And I was like, whoa, like I was blown away, man.
Right.
Ice Cube finally speaking out, and women like Jane and Cassie revealing what really happened. Diddy's entire empire is starting to collapse. Kanye's strange behavior at the trial only adds to the suspicion. If even part of what's being said is true, Diddy's arrest is just the beginning. Once this starts, it won't stop. Famous artists, record labels, and even politicians could be exposed.